What's up, everyone? We are wrapping up a big week today. We've been talking about a topic that is hot on our tribe's lips, which is how do you assess for structural balance structural imbalances. And today we're wrapping it all up and teaching you how to use that data to create your program.
I am super excited about today's show. For those of you who have not joined us before on the live or on the podcast, to my left, we've got our wicked physiotherapist, Phil White. Across the table, I've got my brother Rad and co-partners in crime, Richie behind the mic as the voice of God. Together, we are Unity Gym and the Unified Movement System. Now, the secret sauce behind our program is what we're talking about today, the data collected from our assessment protocols to iterate and progress people based on their goals and needs. And we love talking about this stuff. It is a really, really important conversation to have. Now, the first thing I want to do to frame this whole conversation is to remind people, those of you who are watching, about what we talked about earlier in the week very, very quickly. And that is that the assessment process can be a little bit stifling. It can be a little bit overwhelming for beginners. And in fact, the data collected is usually way too much. There's too many data points when you're an absolute beginner or you're new to strength training. And that's why we recommend that people focus on form and technique first. And we do that through our foundations program. I know that Phil is a massive believer of this. It completely, it's evident in the way he coaches people with
Data
his
is noise. Data is noise when it is not accurate. Like, when you don't have skills, when you've just got into a gym and you're testing all these things, you're just going to get a whole lot of information that doesn't give good guidance. So first step, get training.
It's one of the biggest mistakes people make, isn't it? They want to, analyze everything and feel like that their body is really special and unique. And of course, we are all special and unique, but we've all got two arms and two legs, and there's only so many things that our body can do. And there's certain things that everybody is going to get a lot of benefit from at the start of their journey. And in that respect, you just don't necessarily need to be assessing everything. Yeah. And we've come full circle with this. When we were juvenile personal trainers and we first learned how to assess people, we assessed everyone. And after years of writing the people's programs that we did after the assessments, Yanni and I were looking at it going, we're kind of writing the same programs for everyone because they all need the same sort of things at the start, and it just becomes a whole bunch of noise.
It comes about, and this is across the board in the health and fitness industry. It doesn't matter whether you're a physiotherapist or a personal trainer. We build businesses by holding up the mirror to people and showing them what's wrong with them, and it's essentially a scare tactic, and none of us like it. Yep. And what it does is everyone, even myself, Rad, Phil, Richard, we're all full of issues that you could go, oh my God, that's alarming and terrible. And we saw a report the other day. What was the word used? Critical, or severe, like, oh my God, that's severe. No, it's not. Everyone's got this sort of stuff, so it's really important that, as good as all of these assessments are that we're teaching you guys this week, you have to understand that they're only useful to the right person, and that is a person who is already well trained. We believe that the biggest wins, we know that the biggest wins come for a beginner from dialing in technique. Now, we use a series of strength movements across the board. Every strength coach will use them, things like squats, deadlifts, bench press, chin-ups, overhead press. So when a new person comes into the gym who's untrained, our goal is to get you performing well in these movements. And that's how we're able to create something like the Foundations program that's an identical program used for multiple different people. The only time where it might differ slightly is if the person has a very specific injury that they're wanting to work through already, or if they're a type of athlete that's got a very specific role and a very short time frame to achieve that role, then we might bend the rules a bit and change the program. Otherwise, we advise everyone to go through that program. Now, before we dive any further, I know we've got a backlog of injury-related questions, and I just want Phil to give us...
It is Friday, and I was thinking, I've got so many Physio Friday questions, but Physio Friday no more. It's Physio Monday. So because we got a bit derailed at the beginning of the week, we didn't get to those questions. So Sam Dwyer, Paul Cohen, Alex Taylor, Dylan as well. There's a whole bunch of questions that we've got
and really good ones.
So
we're going to be diving deep into those on Monday. So
I will protect Physio Monday. I'll keep Yanni at bay and make sure that we get them done.
Yeah. So should we just quickly pre-frame what we've been talking about this week for those that didn't listen, so that we, when we move on to this, because what we are going to talk about today, for those of you that have been listening, is how to use the data that you gather from your structural balance testing to create a customized program.
100%. Now, first, before we do that, I want to know, we got 15 people on the live stream. I want to know who you are, where you're from, and I want to know the question of the day in the comment section. I want you to tell us if you have ever been given a program that didn't assess you at all. It was just an off-the-cuff program, like our Foundations program, and how it worked for you. If you've done the Foundations program, share what you found, how that worked for you. But if you've been given a program from a trainer or coach before, or downloaded or bought something online, and it's just a straight sort of blueprint program that's not changed at all based on your goals or structural balance needs, I want to know how it went for you. Comment in the comment section. We'll type that up and all right, Rad, go for it.
Yeah, so the whole idea of structural balance testing is to assess yourself so that when you create your program, it's based on correcting imbalances in your body. And everybody has different imbalances. We've all developed differently. There are some common imbalances that we see in people, like, for example, most people that we deal with in Sydney, in the Western world, where you spend a lot of time sitting at a desk, there's, excessive forward rounding of the shoulders, so the internal rotators are quite tight, the external rotators and the scapular retractors and the thoracic extensors are a bit weak, and there's certain things that we see as a commonality in people, but then there's also certain things that are very, very individual. Like when we do the strength testing, some people are really, really strong with their squat compared to their deadlift, and others are the other way around. So the idea of a structural balance testing protocol is that you test to see where you're at, and then you create a program that is designed to create more balance in the body, balance between strength and flexibility, balance between agonist and antagonist. If you don't know what that is, it's opposing muscle groups in a joint, and balance from left to right side of the body as well. They're the three main areas that we look for. And then you basically go through this process over and over. In every cycle, you do what's called a mesocycle, which is a set amount of weeks. In the UMS, it's 6 weeks. And then you test, you retest, you create a new customized program, then you retest 6 weeks later, and the whole idea of retesting is to see how the last program affected your body, and then to keep going. And with the right approach, the right consistency, the right understanding of how to apply the results, you can really change your body for the better, and you can overcome most aches and pains that you're dealing with. Like most people's favourite is, you don't need to stretch usually to fix the aches and pains. You can usually overcome it with creating balance.
Often a great short-term, like a bit of pain management with stretching, but sometimes makes it a whole lot worse. But anyway, that's
depending
we've
on the
talked about
situation and injury. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And our mesocycles are not just, for anyone who's sort of listening out there, mesocycles not just do the same thing for 6 weeks. We have we also use what we refer to as a ramp loading overload technique within the mesocycle, where the first week you've just been given a whole bunch of reinforcement on where you need to work on, and some of those movements you're going to be pretty lousy at because you've tested and probably failed in those movements. So the first week is really figuring things out and getting used to the types of load and where your starting point is. So we kind of call that like a practice week. And then the second week is the first week that you'll feel a little bit more confident. There's a bit of neural pathway development there, so the brain and the neuromuscular coordination starts to figure itself out, and you'll feel a little bit more coordinated in the movements. And then the third week, we really start to ramp the intensity up. And the fourth and fifth week, we peak. So the fifth week is usually always peak week. And then the sixth week, we retest again. So there's this ramping up of intensity, ramping up of skill level in each of those within each of those mesocycles. So it's not just about sort of getting there, turning up, banging it out as hard as you can. There's a lot of method behind the madness, and that's what provides such great results for our tribe. You know, it's fairly well thought out, and that's what a program should be. A program should be well thought out, and it should be at the point where you're becoming a trained individual, where your training age clicks over that sort of first year, and you've been doing a good, consistent, structured program for about a year. You become a trained individual, and you, compared to the general populations, become quite elite in that regard, you know, and coordinated and fit and strong and flexible. The transformations that we see in our tribe over that first year are phenomenal. People that come in who can hardly touch their toes, who the thought of doing middle splits is just ridiculous. By the end of that first year, they look like they've been doing it for a decade, you know. And it always amazes me and surprises me how much they achieve.
Yeah. So just before we do get into how to exactly use the data, I just want to explain a little bit more by saying that in an untrained individual, data can be noise, because assessment, I think, is a critical part of progression, but only when we're assessing accurate information. So just with the practical kind of implications of that, if you've just come into a gym for the first time and you're trying to do like a overhead squat mobility test, if you're not used to being in a squat position and you struggle with balance, and maybe with your shoulders you don't really understand about scapular positioning, so you just kind of like elevate and lift your the scaps up, and so you can't quite kind of get that retracted and a nice position. It might not be a flexibility or strength issue. It might just be a balance technique. Like that's a movement where there's lots of things to focus on, and when you haven't automated those processes, that will give you information that's maybe not representative of your actual true mobility. So once you've kind of come into the gym for like a couple of weeks, couple of months, maybe in a year, and you've really drilled that, and you have your overhead squat is now an accurate representation of your mobility, then it's really good information where you can if you have the structural balance blueprint, you can use the observations and find the diagnosis of what maybe structures are limiting you. And same goes with your strength testing. If you're doing your 6RM for your bench and your squat, and then you're extrapolating that data into the exact weights you should be going for your other movements, if with your squat you haven't quite figured out the difference between a low bar, high bar and front squat, and you haven't learnt how to sort of get your weight shift onto your heels for your low bar, or your and you're really trying to put it on your toes, or just basic like understanding of how the squat works, and then understanding how to get your shoulder positioning right, create a good platform so that when you push the ground away, the weight goes up. If you haven't kind of got all that stuff down, then that won't be a true representation of your strength, and that will kind of throw out the numbers for the rest of the program. So that's why I'm saying that data can be noise if you haven't nailed the technique, because it doesn't give you true information. So the best thing you can do, as we said, is get that foundation right, use the coaching groups to really start nailing down your technique, and any questions you have about how to do things, get video feedback, and then once you're trained up and ready to go, that's when this data becomes so useful. So good for being able to find the weak links in the chain, and just being able to progress, because I'm sure everyone has found that you kind of hit that plateau once you have been training for a while, and then that's where data and testing becomes so useful to understand what's holding you back.
Yeah, and proper program design as well, which is what we're about to talk about. And because of everything that Phil just said, we go even a step further by not just getting people to not test straight away. We get them to follow the Foundations program for 3 cycles. But then the first couple of testing weeks that we do, we encourage people to understand that they're not actually really truly testing. They're just practicing.
They're not testing at all.
Yeah,
That's exactly right.
They're just practicing the movements and learning the technique, because it takes more time than what most people understand to do technique properly, because there's so much going on. So much so that when I teach people in our classes at the gym, when I teach the Unified Movement System at Unity Gym in North Sydney, I don't even bother telling people the finer points of the technique for their first couple of months because it's too much. Trying to tell people, okay, you're going to do this many rounds of this movement and you're going to do this strength movement, then this flexibility movement, then this and this. If you go through much more than just the 3 basic coaching cues, it's too much. It's too much for people to do. And I used to train like that, and Yana used to pull me up on it. I used to be really specific on giving people everything. And you see people's faces and they're just like, oh my God, and it makes people feel useless.
Yeah,
so
analysis paralysis.
Yeah, so when you go through, even when you do your first couple of testing weeks with the UMS, you're not actually really testing anything. All you're doing is learning the movements and understanding how to do it.
And on the flip side of that, with I think physio rehab, like I think there's a kind of tendency and a approach where people like feel like they have to throw a million exercises at something that are really like specific to each thing, and my approach has very much been like, let's do less and do it really correctly, get that system working like all together instead of just getting like, here are 1 million activation excises you can do. So
I'm going to give a shout out, a shameless plug to Phil at this point in time, because I watch his physio. He's got an amazing system, guys. If you've never done a session with Phil, it is really, really something special. You know, he starts off with an online consultation to talk about your history and get everything going, and that's why recording a program when you're training is so useful when you sit down with someone like Phil, because he can analyse it and look at the data points and see where things may have gone a little bit wrong that's led to what you're experiencing. But then from that point on, he's straight out on the gym floor, and I watch what he does. He identifies where things have gone wrong, and then he spends the physio session, the hour, unlike most physios that are poking and prodding and dicking around with little activation things, he's out there teaching you how to do the movement properly, how to deadlift properly, how to nail the squat based on your anatomy and things like that. And it's really special.
For the online consultations at the moment, it's been a real challenge shifting to that and figuring out how to do it best. And I haven't quite got like all my templates down for exercise prescription and haven't quite got all the information about how to do everything right. But that's something that I am hustling really hard at the moment to try and sort out. So the online kind of experience should be a whole lot better now, especially partnering with my new business partner Nilesh, who's absolute expert in sport physio. So it's getting there.
So let's, because
sorry, I digressed there. I just thought it was a good
segue.
Right,
but we've got 14 minutes left and we've got 2 big topics to talk about. So let's go straight into how to use the data. So the way that the data works with our UMS online coaching testing protocol. So we've talked about that we have the length tension tests and then we have the strength tests. So the length tension tests are pretty simple. If you realize that you have an area of your body that is tighter than other areas, you just put a little bit more focus into those stretches that are going to make it better.
Yeah, the most important part about the length tension is testing symmetry. Yep. The symmetry is the really important part, because what you need to do, if you've got one side that's tighter than the other or restricted more than the other, then you double down on that side to even yourself out.
So if you were going to do 3 sets of flexibility training on your hamstrings and one hamstring was tighter than the other, you'd do 4 sets on the weaker side, and that imbalance will work itself out pretty quickly. With the strength testing, there's a lot more to it. So the strength testing will reveal imbalances. It will. No one is ever just perfectly imbalanced. And an example of how, like, Mike is on the stream now, and he's said, Mike is one of my students in the morning, one of our valued tribe members at North Sydney, and he said, can't even count how many off-the-shelf programs I've attempted, felt that they lacked purpose for me, and in the end I gave up. They never stuck. After a year doing the UMS, now I'm starting to see accurate data and using that efficiently to program in the way I need. Now, an example of where Mike's imbalances were in his most recent strength testing was that he had a unilateral imbalance on the split squat. So when he did the split squat, there was considerable imbalance from left to right, which means that on his weaker leg he did far less reps at the same weight than he did on his stronger leg. So the simplest way to use that data is on the lower body strength training days, which in the UMS is Tuesday and Friday, he is doing split squats. And to go even further, his deadlift was considerably stronger than his squat, which means that there's an imbalance between the squat and the deadlift. So we can attack both those things at the same time by what he's doing is he's squatting on Tuesdays, which is the normal day we do squatting, and he's trying to get as strong as he can on his squat, but then he's replacing the deadlift day on Friday with split squats, so that he's doubling down on the squat movement pattern but also getting some unilateral work. And then he's putting deadlifts in on Wednesday, which is straight after the squat, which is not optimal to lift heavy deadlifting, but he's doing it just to grease the groove, just to keep the movement pattern going and to not leave out a primary movement, which is his choice. I said to him, look, you can do straight arm strength on Wednesday, or you can do that. And that's just an example of how you use this data to customize.
And just to be clear, with the grease groove, that means you're not like maxing out and doing a full program. It's a really pared back, so you're not getting that same level of fatigue. So it's perfectly safe to do that. Just
greasing the groove, just going through the motion, probably not going much more than about 80% max effort, but just working on maintenance, and that's one example of how we do it. Another way you do it is if you had that same unilateral imbalance with your upper body when you do, so if you do dumbbell pressing in the strength testing and you get 3 reps on one side and 6 on the other, and we actually do that in strength testing, if one side stops and the other side can keep going, you keep going with it to see that imbalance. Then when you do your chest pressing in the program, you do dumbbells instead of barbells. That's one example.
And the way we work all this out, guys, because it may seem a little bit overwhelming, is we have a really cool calculator built that you just punch in your numbers as you're assessing, and it spits out exactly what you need to work on and the results. So it's actually, when you do it and when you're using the equipment, it's actually a really easy process, and it becomes really fun and it becomes really insightful and quite exciting. Our guys really look forward to testing week now because it gives them of course it gives you your next blueprint of where you're going to get your biggest wins from, but it also really provides this insight into how you're tracking and how you're progressing and things like that. So it's really nice, it's really rewarding, it's a really, really rewarding process to go through.
It's also a really good way to measure wins without having to always lift more or run faster than you did in your last testing, because without structural balance testing, most people, at least in strength training, that measure success is, am I getting stronger? And there's a ceiling that is quite hard to get past unless you look at what somebody like Bass, like a power lifter, does to get stronger. Like, man, there is some serious specificity going in there. So, if your only measurement for success with weightlifting is, are the weights going up, eventually it gets to a point where you might start getting quite demotivated. Whereas if you're doing something where you're measuring success with structural balance, that's a really empowering process, because people start seeing we get people that talk about how they start getting 3 or 4 reps on the trap 3 raise, where the goal is to get 6 reps at 12% of your bench press. And when they say, man, 6 months ago I couldn't do 1 rep at this weight. And you see how empowering that is for people to see that, those imbalances start working themselves out. It's really cool.
What I enjoy the most is when people start commenting on how their body is transforming based on the direction that this is taking them in, because people are like, man, I've been trying to develop this part of my back or shoulders for so long and I haven't been able to do it. And you're like, because you had an imbalance, and your body is so amazing at adapting to what you expose it to. And so if you do a series of exercises that you're familiar with over and over and over again, your body adapts to that series of exercises, and it will perform them usually quite well, and then it'll hit a limitation if there's a lot of instability created by that. But
and if you try anything else, it'll be a shock.
And then if you try any other movement, or you're just thinking, why am I getting this pain in my traps? Well, because your traps are fighting to do its best to do a job, to pull against the muscles that you've overtrained to stabilize your shoulder girdle. That they're going to be angry at you, and you need to go and develop those traps and balance everything out. So I love when I hear those comments from people that are just like, wow, my body is feeling so good and looking good, looking like a Greek Roman statue,
Now we only have 7 minutes left because we've got the online coaching course straight after this, and we have to be strict with our time. And I don't want to rush over this, guys, because we did. Couldn't be a more perfect question. If we paid somebody to ask a question that would link in with what we're doing today, this is exactly what they would have written. So thanks, Aman, for reading our mind.
Look at Clay's comment down here. He's taken the words right out of my mouth.
So Aman Johal, I hope I've said that right, is saying, hi Unity Gym. Tribe member here who has been doing the 18-minute routine for a couple of months now. I'm keen to purchase more routines, i.e. learning to do splits and mobility programs, but for the life of me, I just don't understand how to fit everything in or which I ought to be doing. How does someone with goal of muscle gain and general fitness fit in flexibility and mobility routines into the regime? Which programs do I need to follow? There's so much content. What do I do to supplement muscle gains but also improve flexibility and mobility without overtraining? Is it even possible? Any help would be massively appreciated as I'm stumped on this. Thanks very much for the awesome content and regular informative emails. Much appreciated. Kind regards. I'm going to quickly say
before we go ahead,
absolutely possible.
Yeah,
and Yanni is
before we go ahead, I want to know who paid Aman to ask this question. Seriously.
You couldn't have written a better question for what we're about to announce today. Because Yanni's going to talk very briefly on why we even have these individual programs like the 18-minute stretching routine and the flexibility masterclass.
Yeah, look, guys, human psychology, and rightly so, we've all been burnt before, is that most people are apprehensive about committing to something that's a subscription, is an online thing that they're a little bit unsure of, and rightly so. You know, there's a lot of garbage out there, like our conversation recently with I can't remember the name, old matey who did the hyperbolic stretching 8 minutes a day, and you get the splits in 4 weeks. Yeah. That is exactly why people like us have a really, really important job in front of us to get good quality content out there. But human nature, we're apprehensive about going all in and committing to something that's a subscription. You know, it's scary. I get it. But Rad, myself, and Richard started to help people test the water. We started to fragment our program. Okay, what does someone want to learn off the cuff? Maybe a muscle up. Maybe learn to use the gymnastics rings. Maybe a handstand. Maybe just a basic stretching or mobility routine, you know, or an in-depth stretching routine, you know. And so we started fragmenting theories, modules of our program to give people an opportunity, I guess, to sort of try what the style of programming that we do, try the quality, things like that. But all of it is a minuscule fragment of, or a tearaway of, our UMS online coaching program. And to be completely honest, it's a thorn in my side, because what it does is it creates noise within the program, and which is just a distraction from what people should be doing. You know, in my personal opinion, and this goes against everything that, you know, a marketer would probably tell me to say, I don't think we should have all those programs available, because it's just distracting people from what they really need, which is summed up spectacularly well in the question that Rad just read out.
Yeah. So the confusion that you're feeling, I'm going to say everything that Yanni said I couldn't agree with more, and this is one of the things that Yanni and I spend so much of our time talking about, is how can we connect with people better. Now, all of that said, the individual programs also serve a really good goal, which is to give people what they're looking for without confusing them. So if you're looking for something to make you more flexible and you get the 18-minute stretching routine, it is the solution that you need for that problem that you're looking for, without all this other stuff going on. But when you come to the point, Aman, where you're ready to say, man, I just don't understand, how can I get flexible and strong at the same time? I've only got this much time to fit it in. This is something that took Yanni and I 17 years, actually not 17 years, because we created the polished product about a year ago. So 16 years, literally, to figure out how to put this into a 1-hour workout that makes you strong, flexible, and fit, all in one go. Is it possible? It absolutely is. Go to our Instagram page and have a look at what our members at Unity Gym are doing. And since we came up with the idea of doing this, we've had input from Phil, we've had input from Richard, like all 4 of us, and these are 4 great minds with a lot of skin in the game, have put a lot of thought into how this should work and how it should fit together. Yeah. And I've never seen anything that comes close to what we do. I've never seen anyone that puts it into the same workout to make you strong, flexible, and fit. And
well, we got people in our gym who have been personal trainers for 10 years who are saying that they've never seen anything like this.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
and being a personal trainer, like successfully working in a top gym like Will at Bond Street, that's hard to do, hard to survive. It's a competitive. You got to stay ahead of the game, especially it's one of the biggest gyms in Sydney, and you know, for him to come in and do this for a few months and say this is unlike anything I've ever seen, is and better than anything I've seen, is a testament to how good the program really is. You know.
Now, we've only got 1 minute left, and I don't normally do this. Normally, when we have our flash sales, it's kind of like, hey, you know, if you're thinking about doing this, this is going to help you, and go and grab this. But I'm going to be much more direct this week. We put this question out at the start of the week saying, what do you guys want to learn more of? And it was an overwhelming response that said, I want to learn how to test for structural imbalance. Now we've told you, we've given you an idea of how to do it, but still without understanding the full system. But if you go through this process of saying, wanting to get an answer for something, getting one of the best answers you ever will and doing nothing with it, this has been a complete waste of your time. You need to act on this. And for this reason, we decided for the first time ever, we've never done this, that we would release our full UMS online coaching program as a trial period. So you can join it for 2 weeks and try it for yourself and see if you like it. And I'm telling you now, if you guys are watching these shows, if you're buying our individual programs, if you're thinking things like what Aman has asked here, you owe it to yourself to try this, because you are for the first time going to see how to create the ultimate program that balances strength, flexibility, and fitness and creates structural balance in the body. So it's a 2-week trial. If you don't like it, you can cancel before the end of the 2 weeks. You won't be charged. And if you decide to continue, it's $49 a month. And not only does it give you exclusive access to the UMS online coaching program, it gives you access to everything that you guys are buying individually when we do these flash sales. You get everything. It's all there. If you stay subscribed, you'll never need to buy one of our programs again. And if you don't want to trust our word for it, spend 10 minutes scouring Google and look at our any 170 plus 5-star Google reviews and see what other people have said. Some people have written essays on how this program has changed their life.
And we're going to do something a little bit different this time. Like we've never done anything like this before, so we really want to provide as much value as humanly possible to anyone who jumps over to this. Now, usually we do a weekly group coaching call to the UMS online coaching group, which runs for about an hour, and that's where myself, Phil, Rad, and Richard critique your videos and movements and answer your specific questions about your training. We're going to be doing that daily, except for Physio Monday. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we're going to end the UMS Movement Mastermind at half an hour, and we're going to be going live to the UMS online coaching group for the first week that everyone comes in there to answer your questions about what you should be doing and where your focus should be based on your current starting point. So it's an opportunity unlike anything we've ever done, and the reason why we want to do that is because we want to make sure that anyone who does jump on that trial gets to make the most of it. It gets to actually sample what they should be doing and has absolutely no distraction whatsoever, because when you jump in there, you do get access to everything we do, and it's very tempting to go, ooh, you know what? I have wanted to learn a handstand. Maybe I'll focus on that. Or, oh, geez, you know, I want to dial in my muscle ups or do this. And there's all these great masterclasses and all this sort of stuff. But they're really, once you're in there, they're bonuses that you should only add once you've laid that solid foundation. And we want to make sure that the right people are doing the right things and investing their time in the right areas. So. Very, very big opportunity here for people. And of course, guys, anyone in the group already, in the online coaching group who catches this, you are able to jump on those calls as well. We got to go, guys. We got to jump in to the online coaching group. We're 2 minutes late. We love you all. Diane Norbury, Lee Clements, Clay, Andy Lawson. It was great to have you on the stream this morning, brother. Mike Scully Skolnick, and who else was in there? Jada. Is absolutely crushing it, Jada. Good work. She's in there. She's saying she's in phase 3 of the foundations, and the results are off the chart. The program speaks for itself. Love your work, Jada. We'll see you all guys next week. Physio Monday. Health is about performance, not just body image.
You better be willing to accept what you're going to have to do to get there.
We'll start focusing on movement goals, strength goals, flexibility goals.
When you nail that skill, that's there forever.
The body image goal doesn't get you that far.
It's the consistency and frequency that's going to get you there. It's not the intensity.
There's no shortcuts to mastery and movement. Destination doesn't change overnight, but your direction will.
The gym is not the place to beat up the body that you hate. It's the place to build the body that you love.
We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.